Good morning, everyone. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. This is the Wake Up. Appreciate you being with us. On the show today, we're talking Benjiman Netanyahu, who just won his fifth term. Expected release of images of a black hole are going to be coming out today. And it's a big day in the Brexit negotiation process. We're talking about that as well. It's the Wake Up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. All right. We're starting with, of course, the events of Israel, where the preliminary results today that showed that the parties of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his chief rival, Benny Gantz, appeared to have won the same number of seats in the Israeli parliament, but that Netanyahu's Likud party had stronger potential partners for a coalition government. A victory for Netanyahu would make it his fourth consecutive term and fifth overall, and probably make him Israel's longest-serving prime minister. It would provide him a renewed mandate as he fights charges of bribery and corruption. So yeah, apparently what the Israeli people thought is, and I don't know how much this has been covered really in their media, every detail of this, but it's very possible that he would have been indicted if he, almost certain that he would have been indicted if he had lost, possibly even now. And the fact that he got elected, even though it was a very, very close margin, and they both parties did win the same number of seats in Parliament. It is incredible to see that there is it really is incredible to see that there is. He still is sitting in office and still will be sitting in office. Netanyahu, who's widely credited with having built a strong economy and keeping Israel secure, pretty much the two real main things that Israeli citizens care about, especially that last part, keeping Israel secure. He's also delivered a long-sought diplomatic victory, several of them with the help of President Trump. He's actually delivered these long-sought democratic victories, diplomatic victories. President Reuven Rivlin is, in the next few days, expected to choose the party leader he believes has the best chance of assembling a parliamentary majority, so that'll be a pretty big deal over there in Israel. But Benjamin Netanyahu will be getting the chance to form the next government in Israel. Interesting thing now going on as we turn our attention to the White House here, where a different White House chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, has encouraged President Trump's instincts where his predecessors has often tried to restrain him. Because I think he knows at this point he's seen multiple chiefs of staff go by, and dude, I can't control this guy's instincts. Why not just let him run free and make the best of it? I mean, which I guess is a somewhat smart decision if you care about self-preservation, really. Yeah. So two of our White House correspondents report for the New York Times. Some outsiders see the cascade of hardline policy ventures, unorthodox appointments, and high-level purges in recent days inside of Mulvaney's expanding influence, assuming that he's pushing Trump to the right. But insiders call that a misconception, insisting that Mulvaney, at most, is pushing on an open door that's otherwise merely liberating Trump to pursue the course that he prefers. So yeah, he knows that in order to survive long in the Trump administration, you won't do it by pushing Trump to not do things he doesn't want to do. It's just that simple. So yeah. So, for example, just a little bit about him here. He's a former leader of the Tea Party movement, congressman from South Carolina. He is not a product of the Republican establishment like Reince Priebus, the first chief of staff, or from the military hierarchy like John F. Kelly, the second. Instead, he arrived at the White House from a revolutionary wing of the conservative movement, whose goal, even before Trump entered politics, was to blow up what he considered a corrupt and liberal Washington. I don't think he sees the role of chief of staff to alter the personality of the person he works for. They have a good relationship, but the president's the boss, says Trey Gowdy, a friend and former fellow South Carolina Republican who golfed with the president and Mulvaney last month. Some outsiders see the cascade as a hardline policy. Yeah, that's pretty much the quote. This is a quote from New York Times there. I just read from Peter Baker and Maggie Heberman. So, yeah. On the other hand, here, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin told lawmakers that the White House had been in touch with his department about a congressional request for Trump's tax returns. So they're going to try and go figure that out. Separately, Attorney General William Barr said he would release a redacted version of the special counsel's report within a week. So those are going to be two very important things to watch. Bernie Sanders, the senator and early frontrunner for the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination, like the New York Times including that there, he plans to reintroduce his Medicare for All Act today in an effort to offer all Americans health insurance under the single-payer plan run by the government and financed by taxpayers. So it actually cost, interestingly enough, it would cost the American people less than our current system now, which shows you how bad our current system is. This brand of socialism has taken it's taken on a whole nother level of itself. It's really much more widely accepted in the Democratic Party, which is very interesting. And greatly described here by Cheryl Gay Stolberg, saying, quote, when Bernie Sanders stepped to the lectern Wednesday to reintroduce his Medicare for All Act, he will do so as senator, just as he did when he introduced a resolution to end American military involvement in Yemen, or where he shepherded legislation to improve veterans' health care. But behind our unmistakable politics of 2020 and his campaign for president, a campaign that never really ended with the election of Donald Trump, Democratic efforts really only intensified with the election of Donald Trump. It was the election of Donald Trump that pushed people into the edge and pushed people in the arms of people like Bernie Sanders, and Democratic Socialist DSA membership really spiked after that event. Not the loss of Bernie, but the election of Trump, which is very, very interesting. So the bill unveiling comes as Sanders' $18 million fundraising haul has made him an instant frontrunner in a very crowded field. He cast himself as an outsider on the campaign trail, which is true for pretty much all of his career. Like, no one in the Senate's taken him seriously. No one in the House has taken him seriously. He's always been the loony socialist from Vermont. It's who he's been. It's just as simple as that. And he now is the millionaires, which is interesting after years of decrying them. But, I mean, personally, for anyone, like, just a little bit of a wake-up call, a reality check for people who say, oh, it's not going to be good for Bernie Sanders here. That the fact that he's now a millionaire and he can't say millionaires and billionaires. Yeah, that's something you gotta really. If you think that's gonna hinder the support of Bernie Sanders, you don't understand really why people do support Bernie Sanders, because they support him because of who he represents, what he will do when he's in office, not because of who really he is. Like, who he is just kind of lends credibility to his argument. The fact that he's been an outsider, he's really been challenged and hated by a lot of people in Washington establishment. Like, it's really hard to make the case that, oh well, he's just on the inside. He's a part of that Washington establishment when the Democratic establishment treated him like the way they did a few months ago. So that's very, very telling there. In Washington, Sanders is the independent of Vermont and a Senate insider, part of the inner circle surrounding Chuck Schumer. But, I mean, his post as a chair of outreach, a job that did not exist until he and Schumer created it after the 2016 presidential election, has given him license and a small budget to travel the country doing what he likes best, rallying the progressive left to resist President Trump. Saying, quote, I ran for president. I got 13 million votes, going over 1,700 delegates to the Democratic Convention, and got more young people's votes than Clinton and Trump combined, Sanders boasted in an interview in his Washington office. And I thought that those 13 million people deserved a voice in Democratic leadership. And he did. He fought for it, and he got it. And he wouldn't have gotten it if it hadn't been for the Democratic presidential run, because that is what made these people really, I think, pay attention to him. Because if he hadn't had that, he wouldn't have had that kind of platform to get off of and demand leverage. He did things like went on CNN to debate tax policy with Senator Ted Cruz. He held dozens of rallies in 2017 to whip up opposition to Trump's plan to repeal the ACA. I think he feeds off these crowds. There's no question about it, said Larry Cohen, the chairman of Our Revolution, the organization that's spun out of Sanders' 2016 campaign. Cohen added that Mr. Schumer, realizing there was a huge benefit to bringing on Sanders, you just don't want to bring him back after that kind of relative success and just treat him as the junior senator from Vermont. So yeah, he had to at this point. But I think the thing American people need to realize, people who are in the media really need to realize is, like, really the reason why people support Bernie. It's not because of who he is; it's because of what he represents, what he will do in office, and I think it's really just as simple as that. All right, so yeah, let's get some more details here on this Medicare for All perspectives. The Times New York Times has a piece where they asked a handful of economists and think tanks with a wide range of perspectives to estimate the total healthcare expenditures in 2019 under Medicare for All plan. And it's very interesting because even some of those conservative efforts have the American people really saving money on healthcare over a 10-year period, down even from $2 trillion to $5 trillion, which is and more, which is pretty cool stuff. Yeah, it's a Medicare for All situation. So yeah, it's similar to article we did on Newsflash, and yeah, that is Medicare for All is apparently, according to some people like Mercatus, which is the Koch brother funded think tank. They say it'll take up $3.46 trillion. Rand Corporation says $3.24 trillion. Thorpe says $3.2 trillion. Urban Institute $3.8. Friedman $2.76. And yeah, you have the you kind of have the idea of how things will work out on how it'll take U.S. healthcare expenditures in 2019 is how it would be phrased. So yeah, probably the people who think it'll be probably costing the least would be Friedman, which Gerald Friedman's a professor of economics at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, whose estimates were frequently cited by the Bernie Sanders presidential campaign in 2016. Yeah, so that's pretty much where that is, and that comes from. It's definitely worth a lot of research. People that I do recommend looking at are people like Matt Bruning, People's Policy Project. He does a great work. He is from the left, but he does a great job of kind of explaining these things and where people are coming from. Yeah, so fun stuff, guys. 9 a.m. Eastern, astronomers are expected to unveil the first ever images of a black hole, an object so dense that not even light can escape its gravity. Actual images would affirm a finding that shocked Albert Einstein when his equations predicted it in the early 20th century, that space can collapse when too much energy is concentrated in one place. Literally, space can collapse, a black hole can't be created. Astrophysicists think black holes generate prodigious energies of quasars and other explosive galactic nuclei. It's going to be very interesting to see that 9 a.m. Eastern, it will be released. We're going to see these images, folks. We're going to see these images. Yeah. And fun fact as well, before we get to our quick hits section of the show, it's the ham world's equivalent of pop music, a honeyed, easy-to-eat mainstay at the buffet table. Boutique producers are even starting to make it, as cooks have come to care more about the provenance of their pork. With Easter and spring celebrations approaching, the southern-based correspondents of the New York Times have been digging into the history of spiral-cut ham, estimated to represent a third of all ham sold in the United States. We're checking that out in about 7 minutes. It'll take you. So, all right, now we get to our quick hit section of the day. All right, so that's what we're talking about. First, starting with the New Zealand gun ban. Parliament passed a law today banning most semi-automatic weapons less than a month after the killings in Christchurch. Just one lawmaker opposed it. So, yeah, they banned most semi-automatic weapons just 1 month after the killings in Christchurch. I mean, if only politics could work like that, that would be some pretty incredible stuff. All right, Brexit, everybody. European Union officials are expected to offer Britain extra time for its withdrawal from the bloc, and more than the couple of months that Theresa May had expected. Their meeting in Brussels today comes 2 days before the current deadline, so that's going to be very interesting to see how much time will the EU allow Britain to continue negotiating and decide what the hell they want to do. The FDA has approved a drug for the bone disease osteoporosis, the first new treatment approach in nearly 2 decades. About nearly 10 million people in the U.S. have osteoporosis. Yeah, the company Facebook has said and improved artificial intelligence to stop. That should help dead people's profiles from showing up in places that might cause distress. That's going to be advisable. It'll be advisable. Yeah. On Tuesday, New York City's Mayor Bill de Blasio declared a public health emergency in parts of the borough to contain the spread of the disease, measles, in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods. The former LA Lakers star Magic Johnson has stepped down as the team's president of basketball operations after just 2 years. He helped bring LeBron James to the Lakers, but